Tekken 8 is the newest addition to the ferocious fighting game series, but instead of building exclusively on a story that's been 20 years in the making, there's a lot to make it appeal to new players. With an in-depth story mode alongside a game mode to walk you through the game's core mechanics, even brand new players will be up to speed in no time. However, the real fun comes from the game's solid online support, putting you against players of all skill levels in the ultimate fight for survival. The thing that most players will be impressed with in Tekken 8 is the stellar visuals offered by the game. From the get-go, you'll be immersed in its environments, and you'll feel as if any character could reach through your screen and grab a hold of you. Despite its fast pace, you're bound to be immersed in its content, and it's a game that will keep you coming back to practice in every which way. Street Fighter 6 is finally here, and it's the full package, sporting a diverse roster of new and returning fighters, immaculate online systems, and a massive single-player World Tour mode. Capcom has swiftly addressed pretty much every issue its predecessor had in regards to lacking content. It helps that Street Fighter 6 is backed up by phenomenal RE Engine visuals. Street Fighter has never looked more realistic, but it's still packing an abundance of style that firmly puts the street back into its namesake. Capcom has also been staunch accessibility advocate for Street Fighter 6. There's a swath of fantastic options to help players with visual and auditory impairments. Plus, the addition of the streamlined modern control scheme helps new players pull off satisfying combos and special moves without wrestling with the traditional 6-button classic control setup. Street Fighter 6 heralds a new age of fighting games. Now on to yet another Arc System Works title. Dragon Ball FighterZ is quite possibly one of the best-looking games ever made, perfectly translating the look and feel of the iconic show into a 3 versus 3 fighting game. It's a great place for beginners to hone their skills, given that there are only 4 attack buttons to master, combos are easy to pull off, and thanks to a varied roster, it's easy to find a main relatively quickly. Visually, Dragon Ball FighterZ is stunning, though can get a little bit chaotic at times. Fans of the show will no doubt love exploring the game's playable characters, each with their own unique fighting style and abilities. From Goku to Trunks and even bad guys like Cell, there's plenty of iconic characters to try out. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the absolute pinnacle of the playground who would win in a fight argument settler. Its monolithic roster of 89, yes, 89 fighters might be primarily made up of Nintendo stalwarts, but there are plenty of remarkable guest additions like Persona 5's Joker, Final Fantasy VII's Sephiroth, Minecraft Steve, and Tekken's Kazuya Mishima, to name just a few. As a platform fighter with an emphasis on super fast movement, huge floaty jumps, and an abundance of optional items, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate may not fit into your traditional definition of a fighting game. However, it excels at being a fun couch party game and an exhilarating competitive experience both. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate also wins points for being a rare fighter with a ton of single pelter content. The World of Light campaign is a fun way to unlock the game's base roster, even if it does drag a little towards the end. It's frankly a miracle that Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics exists at all, saving some of the games featured from fading into obscurity entirely. There's 7 in total. X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes vs. Firo. X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes, and The Punisher. Each has been given an upgrade so that they look right at home on modern consoles, and a few of them still hold up alongside more recent fighting games. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes is the crown jewel of this collection. This 3 versus 3 team fighter features a colossal 56 character roster shared between iconic Marvel and Capcom representation. It's not the most balanced fighter out there, with a very clear set of top tier and low tier characters. If any game can sell you on presentation alone, it's Guilty Gear Strive. The latest game in the long-running series is by far its most ambitious yet, combining richly detailed, shell-shaded characters with clever camera techniques and an abundance of flashy effects to create something that feels like you're playing a high-budget animated movie. Strive isn't all style, though. The game is much more accessible than its heavily technical predecessors, making it a great choice for fighting game newcomers. There are a lot of mechanics to unpack, but they're done so in a very approachable way thanks to Strive's excellent suite of tutorials. If you like what you hear so far, it gets better. Strive's roster of fighters is absolutely bonkers. A 9-foot-tall mad doctor with a bag on his head, pirate girl who fights with dolphins, and a giant anchor. How about a dude called Gold Lewis Dickinson who carries around an enormous coffin with an alien inside it? Mortal Kombat 1 resets the series' convoluted timeline back to refreshing basics. But everything else is anything but simple. Your first port of call in NetherRealm Studios' latest fighter should be the predictably phenomenal Story Mode, which continues the developer's trend of engrossing and surprising narratives. The game's combat has also seen a fantastic overhaul. It's slightly faster than the trudging pace of Mortal Kombat 11 and features an entirely new cameo system, which allows you to choose an assist character Marvel vs. Capcom style. The main roster is arguably stronger than it's ever been too, with a mix of iconic stalwarts and reworked 3D-era fighters like Ashra, Lime, and Nitara. Like Mortal Kombat 1 feels like the series is truly back on top form, but given the brutal nature of the series, some players may find the detailed over-the-top gore to be a bit much. Granblue Fantasy vs. Rising is the sequel and updated version of the 2020 original, including most of that game's content, including its entire roster of characters and a handful of new ones. Rising improves the experience with all new moves, mechanics, and modes. These include new ultimate moves for every character, a brand new story mode, and the Fall Guys-esque Granblue's Legends mode that acts as a nice palate cleanser after intense online battles. And in terms of online matchmaking, Rising brings huge improvements by way of stable rollback netcode for much smoother matches, as well as crossplay support, meaning players on both console and PC can connect and battle with one another regardless of platform. Having released at the tail end of last year, Granblue Fantasy vs. Rising is already proving to be incredibly popular and has a content roadmap planned for the current year. When compared to recent fighting game titles like Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6, City of the Wolves feels refreshingly old school. Neutral and defensive play is incredibly important here, and thanks to the fun but strict rev meter system, lengthy high damage combos can be very costly. Risk versus reward gameplay is a huge factor, and it's rare you'll get to brute force your way out of a disadvantageous position. You'll have to work for it instead. In terms of presentation, City of the Wolves is utterly gorgeous, with SNK clearly refining the cel-shaded style it's implemented in recent titles like Samurai Showdown and The King of Fighters 15. Animation is fantastic, characters are highly expressive, stages are awash with color and detail, and it's all backed up by a tremendously catchy soundtrack. Capcom Fighting Collection 2 brings the following games into one package: Capcom vs. SNK Millennium Fight 2000 Pro, Capcom vs. SNK 2 Mark of the Millennium 2001, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, Project Justice, Plasma Sword, Nightmare of Bilstein, Power Stone, Power Stone 2, and Capcom Fighting Evolution. It's a brilliant collection, allowing modern players to experience some true classics of the genre. For most players, the first port of call will almost certainly be Capcom vs. SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium 2001. What seems like a simple crossover fighter on its surface quickly reveals itself as perhaps one of the deepest fighting games ever made. And it's all thanks to the ratio and groove systems. Definitely one not to miss. Killer Instinct is an absolute must gray if you have an Xbox Game Pass subscription. The definitive edition featured on the service includes all DLC characters, including several Xbox guests like Halo's Arbiter, Gears General, Ram, and Rash from Battletoads, and all extra modes released for the game. You're getting the complete experience of this utterly brilliant fighting game that places a heavy emphasis on executing massive combos, but that doesn't mean KI is a button masher, as your combos need to include specific types of moves in sequence, such as openers and linkers. You'll also need to pull off a finisher at the end of the combo to actually cash out your damage. Otherwise, your combo won't amount to much. Learning Killer Instinct can be a lot then and might not be suited to less dexterous players, but you'll be spurred on by an eclectic roster of fighters, a belting soundtrack courtesy of Mick Gordon and Childweller, and one of the best online experiences in the business.